All right, so I want to talk about my AI coding workflow. Been trying to shoot this for a couple of times, but uh, things always come up. So this isn't super advanced. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, this is a very introductory type workflow that you could use. And the reason I'm showing this is one, feedback. Other people, I feel like I'm playing catch up here. Um, by the same token, though, I'm reading reports that say that a lot of people aren't using AI yet. And I don't know if that's a mistake or not. It's up to you. But if you have not started and you're curious about getting started, then this would be a good place to start. Part of the thing is, there's kind of, when I got started, the perception was that, you hear people say, oh, yeah, I wrote this prompt and it generated, you know, Slack for me, that the Anthropic thing. And of course, they don't really give you the prompt, which is funny. And the more I looked at it, that just didn't make sense. And then I'm listening to various YouTubers who are in the AI space, and I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm figuring things out. And this workflow that I'm going to show you is what came from listening to other people talk. So before I get into it all the way, let's start off with a couple of presuppositions. The as if is, I treat Copilot as if it's a really smart person who is very eager to help me and is infinitely patient and will put up with me asking questions over and over and over. It doesn't care. It's like, oh, cool. You want me to read this document again? I'll happily do that. And I'll ask you questions about it and let you ask me questions. And we'll just do this until entropy destroys the universe. It'll happily keep going. So, with that in mind, you ask all of your questions until you understand what's going on. And part of the thing that we're going to get into is you get Copilot or whatever LLM you decide to use to ask you questions, and you keep going back and forth until both of you are talking about the same thing. So again, ask all the questions. It doesn't care. It'll keep working for you. And it's very eager to help you, which is kind of something to keep in mind. And the reason I emphasize asking all the questions, in its eagerness to help you, it will make stuff up. As I put it, it'll burn your house down to make you dinner. I heard something about there an MCP server for Stripe, and it's like, yeah, you get your prompt wrong and it just refunds all of your customers. Ask all the questions. It's worth it. Which, again, brings to clarity is of vital importance here. The words you say matter. So ask questions. Let it ask you questions. Make sure the two of you are understanding each other. All right? Cool. So let's move on. So here's kind of the workflow. The way it works is I'll create a folder, and in that folder, I'll put a file called requirements.md. It's the very first thing I make. Yeah, so make directory, my project, change directory into my project, then touch requirements.md, VS Code, -n, dot, boom, up we come. And I start editing requirements. And let me show you an example. I just started throwing this together just before I hit record. So this is actually something I'm thinking about building, a taxonomy lookup service. My role, I don't get to be a software developer anymore in my organization. I'm an SRE now. Hey, it's kind of cool. It's fun. But I need to build this service for myself to make my life a bit easier. So you might have this would be a requirements document that I start with. And I just have at the top, I kind of have a narrative of what I'm trying to do. And then I go through and I make a list of stuff. And this isn't complete. I only spent about 5 minutes throwing this together. Okay, maybe 10 minutes. But regardless, I just started putting stuff together. You can probably read this and you could probably figure out what to do. So back to PowerPoint. So we write our requirements document. When we're all done, we're going to go to Copilot and say, hey, review my document for me and ask me any questions you have. And let me know if I've missed any requirements. So hold on, get that in. So I'll prompt it to go read all my requirements and let me know, what I just said. And it goes through and it reads my requirements document and it tells me what it read. And then it starts asking me all of these questions. And let's see. I'm not going to show you that one. This is the Bones requirements document. And I'll put in the description of this video a link to the repo. And I actually have this chat saved as a Word document. So you can have a good chuckle at our conversation. So it goes through though, and it's asking me all of these questions about what I just wrote. And so, so it read it, comes back with my response. I take and update requirements again. And so I read its question, I'll go find the requirement, touch it up, and once I've gone through everything and I'm satisfied, I tell it to do it all over again. Infinitely patient, right? It's going to keep rereading that document over and over and over. It reads it, and eventually, now, in making this deck, the read, question, update, review, read, questions, update, I've had to repeat that 5-6 times sometimes. Occasionally, I don't get to the good to go message, which, let's see if I can find it in here. We go through, and it goes, and it finally comes down and says, I don't see anything missing. Should I proceed? So eventually you get to that. Sometimes some of the things that I've done, it gets into asking just ridiculous, like, hey, what encoding do you want to use? How should I put ACLs on these files? It gets into the weeds sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. And at that point, you just say, go implement the damn script. Now, one of the observations I have, so, you've gotten down to the good to go, and you just tell it, hey, go implement. So let's see. Boom, boom, boom. I say, cool. And like I said, I treat it like a person. Cool, please implement the application we have described in our requirements. And off it goes. And it's really cool watching it do this stuff. And what's really cool is we got these down well enough that in the conversation, you'll see I ask it, hey, set this up so I can debug it. It gets it set up so I debug it. It worked the first time out of the box. And that's because we spent so long getting these requirements buttoned down. And so, if you go read it, we go through and it's piece by piece by piece. And I've actually added stuff beyond what I initially published. So we've gone through here, and I found a bug. I made a mistake in telling Copilot how I wanted to set itself up. And so anyway, details, you can read this. But one of the observations I have is I could give you, if you're a developer, I could give you this requirements document and you'd be able to write the program yourself. It's ridiculously detailed. It's kind of overly done. But the thing is, I forget how long it took me to get to this point. Yes, we went back and forth quite a few times, but I don't think it was an hour to do this. Now, the program is fairly small, and that's one of my recommendations in doing this is to work in fairly small chunks. So a lot of the time, what I'll actually do is, requirement 2, go through and, do this part, have it read this requirement, and then once we're good, have it implement that requirement. one of the pieces is prefer writing lists over prose. Um, and that gets into just being very direct, using a very active voice in your writing as you communicate with the LLM. Providing examples. In my requirements document, I provide like examples of what the command line is going to look like. In the webhook example, I show like this is what I want my JSON to look like. If you're talking to a database, describe the tables you want, how the relationships will be. The more examples you give the LLM, the better off you'll be, because it'll use that to drive its decisions. Again, simple, clear, don't get fancy. You're not writing you're not writing poetry. You just very clear, very direct, simple directions. Again, use active voice. Non-functional requirements. Now, all the stuff, most of the stuff, let me show you what we mean here by non-functional requirements. This is a non-functional requirement. It's just telling the LLM that I want to use C#, I want to use .NET 9, and this is going to be a console app. Boop, boop, boop. So it doesn't really tell how the program does stuff, but you might have a requirement that says, hey, use Serilog for logging. Use Azure tables to store data. Those are those are non-functional requirements. You're not telling it what the data is, why it's storing, how to do that, stuff like that. So, lay out your non-functional requirements so it knows what to do. Earlier, I talked about breaking up your project into small requirements. One trick, now I use one requirements document, and I just have sections where requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3. You could name them, doesn't really matter, but just breaking stuff up in Markdown, putting hashes or hash, whatever, to break stuff apart so that you can focus the LLM on specific pieces that you want. Like I said, I might write 4 or 5 requirements, but I'll start on requirement 1 and have it ask me questions about it until we're clear on it, and then implement that little piece. And then proceed on to requirement 2 and just keep working down. So that the whole point of this is so that you don't waste time. If you try generating the whole thing at once, you hear the stories about people vibe coding these solutions that just end up being monstrosities that nobody can maintain. Now, cool thing for you as a software developer is you get this skill. These vibe coders, you can sell services to those vibe coders where it's like, okay, I'll take your project, I'll take my skill, which is better than yours with the LLM, and I'm not going to vibe code it. I'm going to use this, and we're going to actually engineer our solution. This isn't going to be a vibe. God. So what else do I have? Avoid large requirements, user stories. Kind of repeating myself, but I really want to drive that point home. Smaller is better here. That is my AI coding workflow. We'll call it AI coding workflow 1.0, but that's how I'm doing this stuff, and it is evolving, and I'm going to be demonstrating more. But I wanted to get this first piece out, kind of stake in the ground, and just recommend, if you're not already doing this, this is a good place to start. It's very useful, very productive. You can get shit done, GSD, favorite acronym. Using this. And then you'll start learning and you'll evolve your workflow as well. You may come up with different ideas. Now, you may have been doing this stuff for a while and maybe looking at this going, dude, let me help you jump forward. Let me jump you forward 6 months. Here's some tricks. I'd love to hear that in the comments, please. So closing this out, it's late. I'm about to start vacation. So if you made it this far, like, subscribe. Love to hear from you. I look forward to having a conversation. So you have a good evening, and we'll do this more later. If I can figure out how to stop the recorder.